Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, September 19th, 2017, and it's time for us to learn some Starcraft. Let me begin by going... because I have not drank enough fluid yet today, even. Now we have all the coffee we need to talk about today's topic, which is a general analysis of Zerg vs. Terran from the following perspective. We're going to look at a game that I will describe as canonical Zerg vs. Terran. It's going to be Jaedong versus Innovation. And we want to use this as a kind of a basis, a foundation for understanding kind of the basic phases of Zerg vs. Terran. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at a match between Shine and Flash, where we see Shine using a whole lot of uncharacteristic, unorthodox things, see Flash doing a lot of uncharacteristic, unorthodox things. And because we have this foundational game of Jaedong versus Innovation, it helps us understand it a little bit more clearly. Now, this is not a let's teach you how Zerg vs. Terran works. Really, the main purpose of this is the entertainment of high-level matches. But in the future, we will have deep, focused Zerg vs. Terran videos. In the future, we'll be going into things over a lot more video pieces about like various cheeses, various common strategies, and so on. But today is really about the entertainment value of their play, and more importantly, understanding how different games look compared to a normal game. That's the big thing I want to talk about, particularly the hump, which I'll talk about in a moment. If you are watching these videos in order, I just want to remind you that at this point, if you are following along with the series, you should basically have been playing quite a lot of games against the computer, a lot of team games, no serious 1v1s yet, just trying to get yourself used to the controls, and hopefully you're having a lot of fun, especially those team games against computers are quite a joy if you're engaging in them. Yeah, great. Lost my train of thought, but that's fine. We're going to drink a little bit. There we go. Delicious, wholesome coffee. So in this game, we're going to have Jaedong versus Bogus, and many of you may or may not know that Bogus is an alias for Innovation, the Terran player who is currently dominating absolutely everything in Starcraft 2. And in this map, I was going to show a version of Circuit Breaker on a small map, but I forgot that this is Starcraft Remastered, and I can literally just scroll around the entire screen. Woo! So what I want to start off with is just the way that your base looks in the corner. We got Jaedong, the Zerg player, up here, and this is a very traditional map. Traditional as in you have a base that has a little bit of access to air, but that's fine, you're largely on the high ground. You have one ramp entrance that has an expansion right outside the front. Often on more basic normal maps, you might have a double bridge like this, you might have a single bridge as in right here, but there's generally just some slightly more open terrain here, and there is a third base. This is a very normal looking set of bases to start off pretty much any map. And if we zoom back even more, the center of the map is completely open. There's absolutely nothing in the middle. I would say that 3 bases with this sort of formation, plus an open middle, is the most normal looking StarCraft map. Some of the things that make this map a little more interesting are we have this expansion that's off to the very top side, a gas expansion, and similarly we have these expansions on the left that have a little bit of a different characteristic. The left and right expansions are literally spokes off the middle, and the top one is connected by this sort of interesting up and high ground formation. But for the purposes of this game, I want to zoom in to just the opening of what Jaedong is doing and talk about what kind of the start of Zerg vs. Terran looks like. And we're going to do the exact same thing for Innovation in just a moment, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a sense of the basic shape of the start of the game. So the first big phase in this matchup is that Zerg is really under only one threat, a bunker rush at his expansion. What Zerg's really trying to do, whoa, Dota's tomorrow. What Zerg's really trying to do in this game is try to stay alive until Defilers. That is essentially all that's really going on. Stay alive until Defilers, and hopefully get some extra expansions here and there. Let me pull my camera a little closer. Perfect. That's really it. That's all the Zerg's trying to do. Expansions and Defilers. All Terran's really trying to do is mess with Zerg up to that point, maybe killing him. Alright, you now understand the first half of Zerg vs. Terran. And the second half of Zerg vs. Terran is Zerg using lots of defilers, counterattacks, lurkers, teching to ultralisks. Terran's trying to pressure a whole bunch of points. And from the Terran side of things, it's a very tactical game, just trying to pick things off. And for Zerg, it's a lot of like crazy, stressful management and all that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's stay alive until Zerg gets defilers. Terran's trying to mess with Zerg until that point. And then it's just a whole lot of tactful management that happens at that point. It's going to be tactical management that happens at that point. What we're going to see in this game is when that transition happens. And I brought up the idea of the hump because stay alive to defilers, super easy to die. Terran, who's trying to like rush to get all this good stuff like science vessels and tanks, very easy to die during that period of time. So we're going to take a look at that in a little bit more detail. So we have our Zerg player here in this normal opening. The only thing that's really a threat is the bunker rush at this point in time. So Zerg is going to build a hatchery at this expansion, and we see the drone is moving out, scouting. We see the overlords sort of beginning to move in various angles, but once this drone spots the SCV, overlords are just basically going to be in position to see if there's any early aggression. And there's really not very much of a threat for Zerg until there's stim and medics. And let's just see what this looks like. I want to stress again. Marines suck without stim and medics. Marines are horrible against Zerg without medics and stim. And so Zerg is basically safe. And look at all the stuff that Zerg is able to do. This is one of the biggest things about understanding fundamental strategy in any matchup, is just knowing that you are completely safe. And you might say, well, how do I figure that out? And I'll say, don't worry, dude, I'll just tell you. In this series, I will literally tell you. Look at this. Zerg is getting a third hatchery. It's very important to get 3 hatcheries just to make sure you have enough larvae to make drones and things. Extractor comes down super fast. How many lings are being built? 1 pair of lings. That's it. Nothing, because there's no threat. If this overlord sees Marines coming, yeah, you can make like 2 more sets of Zerglings and then kill off everything. Look at how not stressed out this Zerg player is. He's going for a layer. He's still making drones. Do you see how not stressed this Zerg player is? Do you see how little stress Jaedong is under? This is really the first big phase of the game. The next gas goes to Zergling speed. During this phase of the game, yeah, some Marines might move out. Jaedong just made a few things. Made a few lings, no big deal. Second gas guys are coming up. Look at how comfortable and safe this Zerg player is, because there's no threat. Even the Marines know it. They're like, we're going to attack. Actually, no, we take it all back. We're retreating back home. We know. Still drones being made. Still drones. Still drones. Still drones. Look at this. Still drones. Still drones. Still drones. Hey, look at that. Right around the time Zerg's rounding around 30 supply, we start to see some Zerglings getting made. This is to be able to do a little bit more investigation. Now, I do use that word very deliberately. These are not lings built to attack, because Zerg is never really looking to attack until defilers. Never really. If any Zerg attacks do happen, it's an extremely good player who saw a vulnerability and went for it, or it's total cheesy bullshit. Right? A little bit of an oversimplification. There are some builds that do involve attacks, but basically not in normal Zerg vs. Terran. It's considered an abnormal thing for Zerg to make attacks that are trying to end the game before defilers. Why do I keep hitting this button? This is the wrong button. There's the correct button. Okay. Now, what is very, very interesting to note is we're going for a Spire pretty much every time in normal Zerg vs. Terran. And these Zerglings are just, again, investigating. Notice how only a single creep colony is built, and it's not even constructed into a sunken colony. It's just kind of here on lookout. More drones being built. Remember that round of Zerglings that was made? Well, we have those initial 4. And then there's about 10, 12. Like, not a lot. And now the Marines begin to move out, but because these Zerglings have speed, they're just investigating. They're just checking. They're just looking. And this is all for Zerg to say, do I need to panic and build anything else? This is it. And now we actually have medics. We have Marines with stim. Zerglings are going to try to do some cute stuff. I really kind of want you to have this number in your head that, like, at around 6 minutes, or more specifically, you probably won't be looking at the time or using the time very much, but your Spire is most of the way done before there's really any threat that you have to face as Zerg. And I think one of the big things that happens if you're new to any game is that you'll play overly safe. You don't understand where those threats are. And it's pretty normal for Zerg not to feel threatened. And Innovation, if we just do the same exercise but on the flip side, let's just take a look at his opening so we can see very clearly why he's so scared and cloistered up at home. This is really the first phase of the game, as I will put it. The first phase of Zerg vs. Terran. So if you watch my intro video to strategy, you know that the early game is about making a play and taking a base. That's about it. You make a play and hold a play, or you take a base. Or excuse me. You make a play, or you hold a play, and no matter what, you want to get your second base up. Let's take a look at how Innovation does it. It's going to get a single barracks, and then just build the damn command center. So in terms of what's the play that each of these players made, it's properly getting all the defense that they need, with almost nothing. It's basically the fastest possible expansions from each player. One Marine, and then command center. There's a whole lot of little things that we're going to see out of Terran that highlight this, oh my gosh, Zerglings are super duper scary. Because Jaedong was not under any threat early on, because Marines suck without medics. So Terran is the one who's actually scared at the start of the game. So our Terran hero, keeping his Marines close to his ramp for the most part, builds a supply depot to help create a little bit of blocking. If a shitload of lings flow in here, no problem. We can use the supply depot plus our lings in order to hold everything off. Now, these Marines moving out, if you don't do this, great, fantastic. You never need to do anything with these Marines. You can easily leave them back here. This is a super pro-ass move. Don't ever do this. Don't ever do this! If you're brand new. You just don't have to. This is a tiny optimization. Alright. Second barracks is just getting started. Alright, look at this. This is so great. SCV still scouting. And when we do our episode about worker scouting and worker control, we'll talk more about that. But there's this thing that winds up happening, this sort of fear that feels very big, that feels very intimidating, that feels very scary. But if I just stop, once this game is at 5 minutes or so, let's just pause it like right about now, and boom. Let's count the number of Marines that Terran has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, ooh, 10, 11. Almost a control group of Marines. What does Zerg have? Well, this is where Zerg is just starting the Spire. I don't know what this visual glitch is, but there it is. There we go, got rid of it. Layer's already done, Spire's already started. This is part of the reason why Zergs are just not scared at all in the early game, because it's just a bunch of Marines, which kind of suck. So all the Marines playing very defensively. Rather than build a bunker, the supply depot kind of serves as the defensive thing. You got to build depots anyway, so that's very efficient. And if you've watched hyper-modern Zerg vs. Terran, if you've watched a lot of the current pros play, you'll see a lot of 5 racks happening and all that sort of stuff, and that's great. We'll talk about that later when we get to Flash versus Shine. We'll get to that point. This is to showcase kind of the most normal, neutral, blasé-looking ZvT ever. And the features of it are these 3 barracks coming up first, the engineering bay coming up after them, and of course all the upgrades. 4 Marines. Stim, range, all that good jazz. And alright, great. Stim, still not even quite done. It can come out a little earlier. When does the bunker come down? Right when forces are moving out. And this is the second phase of the game. This is the second phase, as I see it, of Zerg vs. Terran, where Zerg is trying to both manage this group of Marines. Zerg is sending this drone down to the bottom left in order to get a third base. And Zerg is going to try to delay with Mutalisks. Now here's something that I just think is cool. This is just me talking about like, oh, I love Starcraft. What we are about to see is really not about you build thing A and so you are safe against thing X. Oh, but what if he does B? Well, then you build Y. It's not really a sequence of if-thens in terms of building and response. And in StarCraft 2, a lot of things function this way. If you see him doing that, build another Immortal. And if not, then it's safe to build this other thing. This phase of the game is very control and tactics oriented. And this is why we are going to take a look at the vision of both players. I can summarize what Terran is going to be doing in a really simple way. Terran is going to be getting a factory in Starport in order to get tanks and science vessels to support, and then a shitload of turrets as to not lose to Mutalisks. And is going to be trying to do as much pressure as possible. Jaedong, the Zerg, is going to be trying to delay this troop and get this third. Now, what's happening back in the base of Jaedong? Well, as we're seeing factory and Starport for Terran, we're going to be seeing Hydralisk Den, Queen's Nest, upgrades, just going for Defiler. So this is why this is the big, scary delay phase, because both players actually have stuff that's threatening. So it's about who can manage these things the best. So this little Zergling counterattack, designed to just be really annoying, designed to just peel Marines back, just try to delay this little attack. So the typical defense for Zerg in response is just to build some extra creep colonies. Spire's almost done. Building creep colonies and sunken colonies is good because it takes absolutely no gas. So all that gas can be spent on Mutalisks. Now, if you ask me a little bit about, like, what should I do? Should I be going for Mutalisks every game? It's actually okay to not go Mutalisks in Zerg vs. Terran if you don't have good control. You can just go for Lurkers and A+, no problem. No big deal. But we're going to see why Mutalisks are kind of the choice of top pros because you can do so much magic with them. Remember what I talked about with the hump? This is one of the easiest places to just lose immediately ever. I lose games like this all the time. All the time I lose games like this. Now everything's broken through. No problem. Jaedong is going to carefully control. To get Mutalisks to spread fire out like that, you tap the hold position button, not attack, not patrol, you hit hold position, and that's what causes their attacks to spread out like this and evenly distribute so you don't kind of overkill a single Marine. There's no overkill protection. And you know how I said that everything was very tactical at this point? Look what Jaedong does. Jaedong just killed a bunch of Marines, and now he wants to spread to make sure that there's no Marines that could possibly also still be invading, no other things retreating or trying to hide. And now he's just going to harass. Now here's what's really funny, man. Look at this. 1, 2, 3 turrets defending against, or to defend the barracks. We have 1, 2 turrets up here in the main. We have, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5th turret going up. There's 2 reasons why this is happening. One is that Mutalisks in the hand of good players actually are threatening enough that you need a lot of turrets. But the way, way more important reason is that the Terran just lost a big chunk of Marines. If we actually just click, there's 11 Marines here. There's 2 Marines in the bunker. That's all that the Terran has. Now, Zerg is not scot-free in this situation. Zerg actually has to desperately tech up to get Defilers and a third base. So in Phase 2, it's Mutalisks harassing, Lurkers trying to get into positions and defend, and Terran trying to push back against as much of that as possible. This is a phase where, if you are Terran, it's very easy to lose this game. It's so easy to lose this game. It's easy to just have, you know, 2 turrets here, Zerg picks them off, and then just harasses you to pieces. Now, Jaedong doesn't force anything here. Jaedong is just looking for opportunities, looking for any Marines that are in a bad place. He's trying to investigate this pack of Marines. See, is there any weaknesses here? Why is this so important? It doesn't really look like a lot's happening in a you're dying and I'm dying sense. But we are starting to be able to build some Hydralisks because we're getting a Lurker upgrade. And these Hydralisks, we can actually walk all the way down here. And this is what Jaedong will do. You can watch 100 Zerg vs. Terrans. All the mid-games will look a little different from each other. But they'll have this sort of core moment where there's Mutalisks dancing around Marines trying to pick them off, while the Zerg is desperately trying to send drones and Hydralisks to an expansion. And this is when you smell blood in the water as a Zerg player. When you start to see little packs of Marines, like, what were these ones doing? Well, if we back up just a moment. Whoa, nice. So Zerg is leaving some Marines at home to defend against some sort of Mutalisk flyby. So as Terran begins to see that the Mutalisks are not going to do that flyby, a judgment call is made. I want to join this force with this force. That's a great series of shots there by the Terran. Innovation doing some nice work there, but then Jaedong's like, uh-oh, you're starting to lose a lot of Marines, and then goes, oh, look at this. 6 Marines? Great, no problem. So starting to look very bad for the Terran player. He hasn't really gotten to do very much, but at the very least, Terran is alive and teching up to the starport. And hey, look, we're going to get lurkers at our front. We're going to get lurkers at the back. And you heard me use the word defend. Yeah, Zerg is being very, very defensive. I mean, these Mutalisks are really annoying, but there's no big kill that's going to be coming in soon, by any means. Not at this point in the matchup at all. These Mutalisks have gotten huge value, just been able to pick off so many of these things. And this is where the real game begins. Yeah, there it is. Teching up to Hive, getting the Evolution Chamber. And there's something you've probably already noticed as this game's been going on. Only drones. Drones, 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 tons of drones, tons of drones. Pretty much no Zerglings. I think 4. Lurkers, drones. Lurkers, lurkers, drones. Drones, lurkers, lurkers, drones, etc. And this is still a phase of judgment for both players. If you're Zerg, you are judging, is it better for me to have these 3 lurkers positioned at this ramp? Because if I position them here, Marines can't get up. So maybe I'll have 3 lurkers here and 2 lurkers here. That's more normal. Or if the Terran is pushed back enough, you know, let me move all my lurkers forward. And I love this game just as an example of typical Zerg vs. Terran, because we're about to see Jaedong lose a significant fight. Right? There were some really nice Mutalisk magic things happening. Lots of Marines getting picked off. Looks really good for Jaedong right now. I would certainly give him an advantage at this point in time. But lurkers are not attacking units. We're going to see that in a moment. Hell yeah. In the meantime, just teching up to Hive, still building lots of lurkers, 6 more, building some Scourge to handle some science vessels, handle some drop ships. No Nidus yet. Hive is almost done. This is something that, like, I just don't do enough. Dude, I gotta do this. I have to make myself do this. Mutalisks suck once you start to get later in the game. Like, they're gonna have science vessels, they're gonna irradiate all your Mutalisks. The Marine count is so high, they can't do anything good. You don't quite want to go for Guardians because you want to have all that gas going into Defilers. So what do? Jaedong's really smart about finding these little tiny windows. He's flying in here with 2 Scourge. You see him down here? To try to pick off this science vessel. And his timing's actually almost perfect, which is amazing to me. But he's just looking for any little extra thing he can. So there's one SCV down. Another SCV down. And he's going to fly out of here. Takes some losses, but that's okay. The Mutalisk Large aren't going to do too much. Alright, so here comes Innovation. Now you have to make a judgment call as your Zerg. Now that this push is beginning, this is when Zerglings begin to get made. In a desperate attempt to delay until Defilers pop out. This is such an easy spot to lose if you're Zerg. This is so easy. You will lose a lot of games at this point in time, and that's totally okay. Normally it's like 1 or 2 small decisions would have let you get to your Defilers. But everything up to when Zerg gets Defilers, that's like the hump in this matchup. It's so hard to get over the hump. It'll take like 50 games sometimes to feel like you can consistently get past that. But until then, you're just going to have a lot of dumb losses at the start of the game. And that's totally okay. It's totally okay. This is phase 2. This is the tactical phase where it is lots of the... Excuse me, not the tactical phase. This is the big delay phase for Zerg. And there are lots of tactics and judgment calls that get made. So, little small things. Innovation moves out like this. So he can come in at a wider angle because it's harder to go across these double bridges. Now, here is where you're going to get addicted to lurkers, man. I'm going to slow this down. This is where you get super hooked on lurkers, man. You run up, burrow them right in front. Oh, yeah. That's basically how this is done. You run up with the lurkers, but the Zerglings and the Mutalisks are absorbing a lot of the shots, are trying to pick off key targets, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna leapfrog these. Doesn't that just look good? Doesn't that just feel good? Oh yeah. So I mean, if I'm watching this game, I'm like, yep, Jaedong won. Because Jaedong has Defilers, researching Consume. But remember, lurkers are really not the best attacking units. And we're just going to see that, again, exemplified here. Innovation literally just backs up slightly. He's losing some Marines, which is... Losing some Marines sucks, but losing these lurkers is really bad for Zerg. Look how quickly they die. If you play any Starcraft in the coming time, this is right where you feel like, whoops, I may have lost the game if you're Zerg. Because you just lost all your lurkers. How many more lurkers do you have? It looks like you have 2 control groups of Zerglings and 2 lurkers. You have 2 lurkers to hold off a Terran army. Terran has already built out 6 barracks, is already getting the 2nd starport. And if you're Zerg, you're just like, ah, God, why do I always do this? Why do I always do this? Why do I always do this? It's alright, it happens to everyone. So a little cute attempt to run in here, loses this, but most importantly of all, gets the science vessel. This exchange was overall not the best for Zerg, except for that science vessel was actually very, very nice. And these small amounts of Zerglings sweeping in, just pushing back. This is not as much a nice play as it is a really desperate, like, oh god, oh god, oh god, I don't even have any Defilers with lurkers yet. I just got Consume, I only have Zerglings, And this is about when the second phase of Zerg vs. Terran wraps up. So the first phase is total comfort, nothing big and bad happening, lots of freedom for Zerg. Terran's worried about Lings coming in, it's trying to get to that big juncture where the medics pop out and Stim pops out. What we've been seeing now is the second phase. A lot of harassment from Mutalisks, a lot of cool tactical plays with Marines and medics, a lot of that dancing. Lurkers are sort of at the end of phase 2, trying to hold things off. And right when Defilers come out, that's when phase 3 begins, right? That's when phase 3 stamps itself in. So now we are in what I would call phase 3. And overall, I would put the advantage to Jaedong here. He managed to successfully hold on until Defilers. And it's important that you see this look for Zerg. because Zerg is kind of just in defense mode. You don't really have anything that's that mobile. You're pushed all the way back on the map. Yeah, you maybe have some overlords here and there. That's great, right? This is nice, but you don't have any forces in the middle of the map. You're not moving out in the way that Bogus is going to be moving out in a moment, where it's actually comfortable to be in the middle of the map. And part of the reason that Terran is very comfortable walking out here, well, assuming that you have a science vessel, that certainly adds a lot of comfort. But if you encounter Dark Swarm or Lurkers, you just back up, dude. Zerg stays in hyper defense mode. OMG Bad Beats Lol in chat says Zerg defense mode in ZvT sounds familiar to SC2 nerds. Dude, you have no idea. Defense in Starcraft 2 is I'm also building a really big army. In Brood War, it's I hardly have any army, but I have just the right army spread in just the right places, and we're going to see Jaedong actually pushed into uncomfortable positions because it is so hard to defend. So this is the big phase 3. This is like Zerg has defilers and is trying to manage a bunch of attacks all over the place while Terran is pressuring super hard. Particularly in lots of different locations. So Terran's poking here. Often it's very hard to get this base. Often it's very hard to get a 4th base. But look at that. That's one auto attack away from a dead defiler. One auto attack away. And then these Marines just storm in and push back. So Dark Swarm and Lurkers. Okay, cool. And what Terran likes to do here is bounce back and forth between these different locations. The only way Zerg can really attack, the only way Zerg can hope to apply pressure, is through counters. So Jaedong is sending some Lings up here. He has... I want you to just note there's 2 Lurkers, a Defiler, and some Lings here. 2 Lurkers, a Defiler, and some Lings here. In the main base, drones. In the main base, drones. That's about it, right? Zerg just hardly has units at this phase in the game. This is what I really love about watching Brood War, is like, this Zerg has 4 bases and essentially next to nothing defending it, but it's just the right stuff. So this is where Innovation begins to do drops all over the place, trying to find any angle of vulnerability that he can. Queen's Nest, not an amazing target, but it's still something. Innovation trying to pressure 2 locations at once. There's actually, if you look, just a single Lurker here and a single Lurker here. Very careful positioning. More Marines sweeping up. The Zerglings that were trying to do some sort of fancy counterattack, and it's not really working very much. 1 extra base coming up for Innovation. That's how you defend bases as Terran. You just pressure really, really hard. This is so stressful if you're Zerg. But it's important to stay calm. And Innovation, or Jaedong just does an amazing job of staying very calm despite all this. Like, if you once again take a look at Jaedong's view, I mean, you essentially see nothing. Barely see some Marines. Barely have vision of part of this ramp. This side covered, that's pretty nice, but... So the way Zerg steps out of this situation is with Plague and Dark Swarm. You try to Plague Marines to force them to get really far back, because Plague will reduce their health to 1. You have defensive Dark Swarms and Lurkers trying to hold on. Plague is super duper important. I think Jaedong's getting it. I recommend always getting the plus energy upgrade for Defilers, like always. And there's something that you may have heard me say in the Starcraft 2 dailies, that if you're defending anyways a lot, upgrades are a very smart thing to do. If I'm desperately trying to hold on, the best way to prepare for the late game is just keep getting upgrades. Defending anyways, you know. So as Zerg slowly gets enough Defilers and Lurkers, it used to be 2 Lurkers here and 2 Lurkers here. Now we have 3 Lurkers. We have multiple Defilers. We have multiple Nidus networks. 1 to here and 1 to the main base, which is actually very important. and then tiny one control group counterattacks. This is how Zerg hopes to win these games, is by doing small things like this. Small little counterattacks, forcing a lift. Very common to see, very common to see Zergs get overlords with drops, so that way if the Zerg can't necessarily walk units over to do that, they can maybe float them over. This is also why we see these Zerglings kind of sweeping down to the other side. Innovation. Having a really dominant position in the middle of the map, which is pretty normal. And now we get to see yet more tactics. What is Innovation doing? Upgrades, science vessels, marines by the gallon, and drops. And so, there's pressure up here. Don't defend! Not in this matchup. Not if you're Terran. You want to push, you want to pressure, man. So here's where we have these big drops that happen in the main base, trying to move forward, because invariably there's going to be Dark Swarm, and then you can retreat from the Dark Swarm and still be shooting important things. This, I think, was the big error that lost Innovation a chance to do huge damage. Just accidentally losing all of this stuff. Because this is really, really painful for Jaedong. This is always super painful. He's going to lose the spawning pool, he's going to lose his upgraders. Going to lose his Defiler mount. And yeah, Zerglings are really good, and you are invulnerable under Dark Swarm. But you can always just keep running away from Lurkers. You can always keep running away from Dark Swarm. This is the proper way to play this game. This is, I mean, I was actually playing some games over the weekend, and this is how I would lose. I would be, you know, trying to burrow and try to defend stuff on this side, and then there would be like some other huge force somewhere that just caught me off guard, and I would wind up losing a bunch. And in the meantime, Jaedong is just doing this smart thing. He's not even really trying to do big attacks. He's just trying to deny the retaking of this base. This is it. I don't know how he got these Zerglings in, but this is rare. This is not a real play. This is like some unbelievable tactical move that Jaedong was able to just find in the midst of all this shit. But look at Zerg just kind of slipping around, slithering to different angles, and at some point here, is this where the Ultra Cavern goes down? I think there's the Ultra Cavern. At some point, Zerg has been spending so long just defending and getting upgrades that the money actually begins to pool up. You start to get enough drones at each of these bases to where they actually look like real bases. You start to be able to have enough units to take a fifth and to move out more, and this is where the Ultralisks kick into gear. See, no attacks, no attacks. Lurkers are not really that good at pushing into new locations. By the way, this is the most Jaedong thing I've ever seen in my life, man. How does he do that? He just sees everything. My two Lurkers, when they're at that base, they die. They valiantly denied the third for a long time, and their reward is death. And Jaedong's just like constantly unburrowing and retreating, which is actually really, really important. Lurkers are really expensive. They cost 125 gas each, which even on 4 bases, you start to just feel how much goes into them when you're just losing them all the time. You just suddenly get into a position where you're just like, wait, where? I don't have any ability to do anything anymore. Look at this, just constantly run around counterattacks, and of course Innovation doing the continuous tactics. Now, if I wanted to still be correct but be very boring, I could just say continued tactics, right? Oh, he's going to pressure this base. Oh, he's moving up here to pressure this base. And there's more detail and nuance and where and why they're choosing these different angles, but I really want you to more focus on the simplicity of what's happening. It's just constant science vessel with irradiate, trying to irradiate these targets and detect. Marines and Marauders looking for any opportunity. Drop ships getting produced to continue to hit different locations. And even as Jaedong is on 4 base versus Innovation's 2 base, this is the matchup. No real need to pressure Zerg, or pressure Terran beyond 2 bases. Like, Terran's always going to get 2 bases and always going to be able to defend 2 bases. Always. Always, 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 always. Fun factoid, if you plague a lot of science vessels, a really nice way to clean it up is with mutalisks. Because the bounce from the glaives deals enough damage to kill off all the science vessels. Pretty nifty, huh? So even in these dying moments, Innovation is still looking for these opportunities to pick things off, but Jaedong has just gotten so much slow, continuous value out of these little counterattacks like this, that this winds up being the game. That's it. So, from a more basic perspective, I think he tries to go here. I think there's one Dark Swarm, and then he's like, fuck this game. Where does he leave? Is it like right here? I think he just... Oh yeah, he tries to drop here. Loses some stuff. And then it's like one Dark Swarm, I bet. Oh, none. 0 Dark Swarms. And he types out. Great. I want to keep these 3 phases in mind as we go into Flash versus Shine. This is phase 1. A Zerg super comfortable. Nothing really threatening him. Until Terran is able to get medics out. That's our very first phase. Our second phase is a whole bunch of cute micro with mutalisks and delay tactics from Zerg, including lurkers, in order to get a Queen's Nest. And this continues up until the Zerg winds up getting Defilers. And then phase 3 is just constant bombing in, dropping all over the place, Zerg trying to counterattack, trying to defend. And a lot of the big decisions that you're making as a Zerg are, where do I build my Defiler? Do I build it at this top base, or do I build it at this bottom base? This top base needs Scourge and a Lurker. This bottom base needs a handful of Lings and 1 Defiler. And then carefully allocating across those. So what we're going to do is we're going to see a series from the last OSL, the teething OSL in 2012 between Shine and Flash, that's going to contrast with this game a lot. This game the game that we just saw is pretty much the most normal-looking Zerg vs. Terran I could find, and it's pretty damn normal. The only thing we didn't see is Terran winning, right? That was the example of the Zerg winning. The way Terran wins is that drop you saw in the main base that Innovation did a lot of work with. Imagine him doing more work with that. Now you got it. But this game, this series, is between 2 very interesting personalities. One is Flash, who is pretty much the greatest Starcraft player of all time. He's the one that everyone looks to and still says, I really can't beat you. Even now in 2017, he's considered the #1 player. Bisu and Jaedong are right there with him as the #1 of Protoss and the #1 of Zerg. But generally speaking, people consider Flash to really be the #1 best. And Flash isn't just the best in terms of win rate. He also has pioneered a whole bunch of different strategies. He's creative, but in a way that just looks spooky strong. No matter what strategy he ever comes up with, Flash's emphasis is on defense, getting more bases, and having a lot of shit. These are really good things to have. This contrasts with someone like Jaedong, who often does not have a lot of bases and does a lot of attacking games. Jaedong also has a lot of defensive games. Jaedong has a very universal style of Zerg. But Flash is very, get a lot of stuff and get a lot of good defense focused. His opponent is Shine, who's a Zerg player who's known for being very, very creative and coming up with very weird, unusual builds. And that's why we have to have that basic Zerg vs. Terran understanding under our belt so we can look at these games and kind of get what's going on. And think about what the implications of the next steps are as we're going into these games. So here, on Return of the King, we got Flash versus Shine. We're going to go ahead and reveal the whole map. One thing to note about this map... Is this Return of the King? I don't think this is Return of the King. You know, the names of these maps... they're not going to matter too much. They're really not going to matter. In fact, I'm just going to tell you a lot of these maps just don't even matter. You're not really going to see these. This is sort of like the interesting stuff that happens in the pro scene. Again, we kind of have a common formation of a main base with only some access from air, a ramp, and then a natural expansion that has an open front. and then we have a third base here. This is high ground, this is low ground. This is high ground, this is low ground. So there's a lot of weird tactical things that you can do here. A lot of tactical funny business. And so what we're going to see out of Flash is that he is not even going to go Medic Marine. This game, he's going to go for a kind of early mech build. He's going to focus on doing that. And what we're going to see Shine do is go for a very early aggressive build. Gladiator, that's right, that's what the name of this map is. This is Gladiator. Now, what were the big highlighting features? Come on, man. Come on, kill this. What were the big highlighting features of Phase 1 of Zerg early game? It was Zerg luxuriously comfortable. No big deal, no problem whatsoever. Zerg has really no pressure from Terran. And it's when Terran starts to get some Medic Marine that things actually become intimidating. So what do we see Zergs do in order to exploit this? Well, in the Jaedong game, we saw a lot of drones, fast layer, lots of gas early on. But often when it comes to analyzing maps from an early game perspective, what you might do as Zerg is note, man, this is a very uncomfortable place for Terran to take an expansion. Because what did Innovation do in the previous game? Innovation kind of built like a supply depot, I guess what would be here. And then had a command center here, kind of making a big-ish wall with a ramp behind. Here, this is a ramp going the other way. So it's really uncomfortable for the Terran player to try to put Marines here, because Zerg can just put Zerglings and see everything here. So in other words, there's early game weakness for Terran, just due to this inverted ramp and how open this space is. So what does Flash do? Flash is going to make a perfect wall off. This is a 100% solid wall off, so Zerglings cannot even fit through. And look what we see out of Shine. Shine is notorious for on 4-player maps because it's often hard to scout exactly what you're doing. He's going to take advantage of this early game by opening with a really fast gas, a really fast pool, and then a second base behind. This is going to be very difficult for Flash to be able to find this early on. He loves doing this sort of cheesy nonsense. Flash is going to make one Marine. He's going to lift, land, and sit secure. Now, if you're looking at times at all, it was around 5 minutes and 15 seconds when we saw Innovation in the last game get Medic Marine and be threatening. So let's look at what we see. We see Flash has managed to get in here. Are we going to see Zergling speed coming up? You bet your ass we are. We're starting to see some Lings get made. Just 4, though. Enough to repel this SCV. If you're a Terran player, there's a couple things that you're going to be thinking right now. Think of being in Flash's position with those phases that we've thought about before. The first phase is Terran can't really do anything aggressive because he doesn't have anything. He just has crappy Marines. And phase 2 is where Terran wants to be moving out and doing stuff, and Zerg wants to be delaying with Mutalisks. If you're Flash, you might look at this and you might go, ooh, he could be rushing for very fast Mutalisks here. So that way he can begin applying pressure to me right away. This happens. The Zerg player Hero was very, very famous for doing a lot of ultra crazy fast, like pool on 9, gas on 9, and expand and like get the most insanely fast Mutalisks you've ever seen in the matchup, and then go back to a normal play where he would be going for a third, where he would be going for defilers, where he'd be doing all those things. Same concept, different build, but same concept. So you got to worry a little bit about that. What about some sort of cheesy nonsense? What about Zerglings sweeping in? Well, if you're Flash, you're not really that worried about that because you've solved that problem. The big question is, how do you get up the appropriate defense to stay alive? So first things first. Think of how to solve this problem if you're Flash. You're not really sure what your opponent's doing, but you need to both know what he's doing and get the appropriate defense for that. This was the first thing that really interested me about this build. Ultra Fast Academy. And when I first saw this game, I actually watched this game live. When I first saw this game, I was like, oh, okay, so he's just going to be getting his stim super fast, so he can get stim marines and ranged marines very, very quickly to defend against the mutalisks. Nice. Great. Shine is going for lurkers. He's actually intending on doing this unbelievably aggressive, super fast lurker bust. Look at how well it's timed. He has just enough money. He can't even really build out of these larvae. It's just stockpiling. And Flash is very cleverly working his way in with this SCV to kind of like see what's going on. I don't know how the hell he got down there, but that was really good. And he manages to see what's up. The thing that's super awesome about going for this very fast academy is that if you get 2 scanner sweeps, 1 at each location, Zerg only has 2 hatcheries, so you can scan directly on the hatcheries and see exactly what's going on no matter what. And so right around now is when you would even be able to get the comsats. And this is just so sexy. This decision point of what do I do with this factory? Do I build an armory to get Goliaths? Do I build a machine shop to get tanks? Well, I'm going to be able to find out in like 5 seconds right when these comsat thing's done. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just lovely? Because it's one thing to say, ooh, I thought they were lurkers. Ah, I knew it. I bet you he's going lurkers. And there's another thing altogether to have a timing set up to where you can identify that. Doesn't change the fact that this is going to be stressful. So we have the factory coming up. We have another factory coming up. So I'm going to stop here at just around 5 minutes. Look at these lurkers making their way all the way over. Just around 5 minutes when the lurkers are getting ready to make. Yep. So it's lurker time. Come on. Hit me with it. Yeah, come on. Hit me with it. Yeah. Remember the last game? This is right around the time when Terran was about to get Medic Marine. And here we have lurkers morphing outside the front of a Terran base with a whole bunch more stuff rallied in. Look at this main base. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. This is like a very thinly timed, very stressful, difficult to deal with attack. And if we take a step to those phases that I was talking about in the Jaedong versus Innovation game, we pretty much have identified there's no next step for Shine. There's no really next step. It's about this moment. And in a way, this is what cheeses really are, or all-in plays really are. Players know what Phase 1 and Phase 2 and Phase 3 of Zerg vs. Terran is, or what the phases of the various matchups they're in, and how their strategy works, and what the big beats in that strategy are. And what these all-ins are trying to do is trying to exploit those particular things. So the way to not think about this cheese build from Shine is not to go, oh, I get it. If you build lurkers and zerglings, that is a good thing to do. You can just build them and just try to kill him early on. If Terran didn't early expand, if Terran was doing something weird, if Terran was doing anything but a normal Phase 1 into Phase 2 into Phase 3 build, this strategy sucks. It's the knowledge of the normal style of play that contrasts with this that actually makes it good. Because Terran technically could have started the game off and built a whole bunch of bunkers. And that actually easily holds this off. This easily holds this off, just building a whole slew of bunkers, no problem. But if you just start the game off and build a whole slew of bunkers, you're going to lose real easily to any Zerg that's playing a normal game. Why? Because the Terran in Phase 2 really needs to apply a shitload of pressure. So if you're building a bunch of bunkers, you're not going to be able to apply pressure. Notice how this bunker is a response to seeing this sort of thing. Alright, so tanks coming out, siege mode coming out. This supply depot is very, very clever. And I'll stress that there's a few things that we see out of Flash. He is still building SCVs and depots. He is still able to do next steps, and Shine is not. Shine has hardly anything. So it's okay if you're Flash to spend a little extra. So here's the moment that really highlights why this is a good strategy. Against some normal-looking Terran play, you can get in here before stim and pick off one bunker. Not even siege mode is up yet. And Shine, I think, maybe steps 1 inch too far forward. In just that moment. But does manage to get the siege tank. Look at how close that defense was. The fact that this is making vultures and this is making tanks is just enough. All the SCVs are done. This is a very, very beautifully timed play by Shine. And a very, very carefully established defense from Flash. Little cute things, fire bats out of here, vultures out of here, tanks out of here. Super easy to forget about this barracks. Super easy to forget about this. So this is crisis management, is what this is. This is the skill of understanding what tools you have available to yourself. Doing things like pulling SCVs out of gas because we don't need gas right now. Doing things like building out of every single production structure. Fire bats suck. They're not good in a long-term sense, but there's something. There's something to make. I know the choice between Marine and Fire bat. I think Fire bat makes a good amount of sense. No SCVs being made. You hear the scans going off. Flash is still preserving enough scans to be able to detect, but he's also throwing down scans at the critical expansion. Okay, yep, no drones. Good. Isn't that exceptional crisis management? Oh my gosh, it's so spooky good. Spooky good. This is like the most ling-proof wall-off, or ling-proof composition. It's like Fire bat vulture. Just now starting to make SCVs again. Starting to get vulture speed. And there's the GG, and Shine leaves. I feel like this game, even though it was only 7.5 minutes long, highlights the personalities of these two players very well. Shine has a really good knack for coming up with very precisely timed all-ins that play off standard play. It was a little bit what the map is. It was a little bit, the tendency for Flash to play normal, but it was mostly Shine knowing what normal timings are in the normal flow of Zerg versus Terran. We got the chance to see that. He was like this close from winning. I feel like if one Lurker Spine connected differently, probably wins that game. And this also highlights what makes Flash exceptional. He's the sort of person that when he does something weird, he's not trying to win the game with it. He's making sure that it has a step 1 and a step 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And we saw that in this game, that he had a long-term game plan prepared. You see that already with 2 bases. But he has all these little adjustments that he's making because he, too, knows the big phases of Zerg vs. Terran. What are the big phases? Well, it's Terran's really weak, and then Terran has to push out against Muta Lurker, and then it's that third phase where there's a lot of tactics because Defilers are on the field. And that, I just love that Academy timing that he had. I'm not going to play a custom game. I'm going to open up the next replay. Beautiful. Big ones. Yeah, Teeving quarterfinal. The next map is Neo Ground Zero. It doesn't matter. This map doesn't matter. This map doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter because we're only going to see half of it. So here is the base that you start out in. And, you're starting to recognize the pattern here. You have a high ground base with a little bit of access to air. One ramp that has a natural expansion and a slightly more open area. Then you kind of have a third base tucked around here. On this particular map, it's mineral only. But you also have, ooh, these sort of side bases. Yeah. Looks a little bit like Circuit Breaker. This map has a circular center, which is the second most standard looking thing. Still allows for big, wide battles in regions like this, but you can do sort of counterattacky things. Be cute in that way. But none of that's going to matter, because what we're going to instead be looking at is Shine trying to play a normal game, and Flash doing the modern twist on Zerg vs. Terran. So traditional Zerg vs. Terran involves a Terran player going for an expansion and 3 barracks. 3 barracks kind of quickly, so that way you can do a little bit of attacking stuff. Specifically, do you remember at the very start of Innovation vs. Jaedong? Right before Jaedong got those Mutalisks out, a bunch of Marine medics showed up at his front door and Jaedong almost lost the entire game. That's traditional Zerg vs. Terran. Marine medic pressure at a time when Zerg doesn't quite have his big tool yet. Let's look at how this differs a little bit. And remember that 5-minute timing as well. Just keep that in mind. Okay. La da 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 da. Yeah. Drones getting built. An expansion at a normal time. 1 barracks. What is Flash going to do? What will the genius himself try to pull off? Oh, he expands. Oh my god, look at this. Wait a minute, it's a 3rd hatch. It's an extractor, it's a spawning pool. Oh my god, it's dripping with standardness. A 2nd barracks. Oh, I'm shaking. I'm gonna vomit. Right, this is the game that we saw. This is Innovation versus Jaedong, right? Same openings. Standard is standard for a reason. Everyone loves doing standard stuffs. Hey, what do you know? There's some Marines coming out. No, kill that! Kill that! 3 Zerglings barely beat 3 Marines. 4 Zerglings definitely beat 3 Marines. I would have charged in there. I would have charged right the hell in there. I can hardly see. Ah, there it is. There's the Academy coming up. Yeah, nice. Academies are great. They let you get medics. Sick. Alright. Oh, hell yeah. Remember that supply depot at the front that Innovation built? Oh, man, look at that. Flash is getting supply depots at the front. Okay, alright. We see Zergling speed. Whoa! Oh, it's almost identical. Except, Jaedong did get his 2nd gas geyser at 22, which I recommend. Whatever. When will things get different? Nearly certain they will, because I've seen these games before. I'm super positive. It's gonna happen. Just you wait. Come on, do it. Do it, Flash. Just building stuff. Okay. He'll do it in a moment. Once again, we see Shine doing something a little unusual. He is trying to build a lot of Zerglings right during this time period when Flash would typically want to move out. Remember how Innovation moved out a little after 5 minutes? A little after 5 minutes, that's when Innovation had Stim nearly done, had some medics out. We see the same sort of timing here. This is a very risky maneuver to do, but it's again trying to exploit the fact that often there's just not that many Marines out. I love that Shine didn't commit to this. This is not cheesy, this is not BS. This is a little risky, specifically because you're trying to kill Marines right before Stim is finished. And I would say that overall, I think Shine did a nice job. So if you're Shine, you're pretty much okay right now. You're not going to lose the game because 5 Marines and 2 Firebats came up. You're not going to do that. Thank God, Flash. You always do what you do in this game because I've seen it several times. This is the modern thing that we see in Zerg vs. Terran happening out of Terran players. Terran players, instead of building up to 3 barracks, being very aggressive, or even going to 4 barracks and being very aggressive, Terran players delay that aggression by getting a much faster upgrade. A lot of super modern Terran players even go 1 barracks, 1 engineering bay, and then build more. But let's see what this winds up looking like. We're not going to get a big scary push before the Zerg has Spire units. So we're just transitioning into Phase 2 right now, is the way to think about it, right? Phase 1, Terran's weak, can't really do anything. Shine even gets perfect vision of everything that's going on here. Right at the start of Phase 2, yeah, 2 sunken colonies. Don't even need 3, man. It's no problem. There's nothing here that's a threat. Got some Zerglings coming out, got the Spire coming out. Great. Uh-oh, barracks number 4. And you know what always follows barracks number 4? If you said barracks number 5, you'd be right. Oops, some slight miscontrol, but that's fine. Mostly killed off all the Marines. I want to stop and just look at this game at this point in time. There will be a 5th barracks built. Come on, start it. Ugh, there we go. So what has essentially gone on at this point in time? We've had a pretty normal Phase 1, except... oh, wow, Shine ran a lot of Zerglings in here and killed off Marines to keep the Marine count low. Once again, Flash had some units out in the front, and Shine overwhelmed it with Zerglings and killed off the Marine count. If you watch the Innovation versus Jaedong game, Innovation was kind of stilted at that point. He couldn't really do anything that much threatening. He kind of wandered around the front of his base, and Jaedong picked away with Mutalisks, but that was sort of it. The attack had run out of steam, and Innovation had to wait until he had tanks and science vessels. But this very modern style of play says, you know what if I just get so many Marines, and because I'm getting a really early upgrade for them, they're even more powerful, and then I just pressure super hard. I just constantly make big attacks. So here is this drone moving up to the top right. 2 Firebats moving out. Pretty normal. You use the Firebats early against the Zerglings, and they stop having as much value because your Marines are honestly a little bit better. And this is a good way to spot expansions, but Shine is still expanding. Shine is now getting ready to use Mutalisks to harass the Terran player. Seems normal, seems typical, but look at the turret count. Remember how many turrets Innovation built? There's 2 here. There's a 3rd one coming. There's 2 here. No 3rd one coming. And there's 3 here. It's about 2 or 3 fewer turrets. There's no factory. There's no next step coming out of Flash. There's no, I should say, his build does have a next step, but he's just chilling and building Marines at this point in time. Much later, he'll build a factory. But by building all these Marines, it allows the Terran to be way more pressureful. Way more pressureful during this phase in the game. And remember, that was the whole point of Phase 2. The whole point of Phase 2 is Zerg desperately trying to get to Hive. We don't see a Queen's Nest yet. We do see a Hydralisk Den produced for Lurkers. But Terrans are being way more aggressive these days. Because they're like, oh, well hell, it doesn't matter if I have a later factory. Look at this. Mutalisks are trying to counterattack, but there's not only enough Marines, but there's a shitload of Marines out here that are moving out. Like... Shine's Mutalisk control is not as good as Jaedong's. I mean, no one's Mutalisk control is really as good as Jaedong's. This is annoying, for sure. But notice how different the tenor is in this game than in the Jaedong Innovation previous game. We used to see a whole lot of Marines get killed off early, and then Innovation was kind of out of Marines. With 5 barracks, Flash lost a bunch of Marines early, and now just has a bunch of Marines, man. Shine's still looking for those opportunities. Lurker, Hive, both coming. There's just too many Marines, though. Hey! And so Shine, despite the fact that he was doing the overall look of things by the book, taking this 3rd base, he has his Hydralisks getting ready to morph to Lurkers, just as Jaedong did versus Innovation. He has his Hydros at his front, getting ready to morph into lurkers, just as Jaedong did versus Innovation. But Flash just built so many Marines and is able to be so aggressive that he can take huge opportunities like this and completely kill Shine before even finishing a starport, before building anything out of the factory, just with Marines that have this +1 upgrade. +1 armor is not even done. Look at this shit! So there's a few things I want to note after this second game. The first is I just want to highlight again the connection between what we're seeing here and that ultra-normal Zerg vs. Terran. This is Terran going, that second phase I'm supposed to pressure, but what if I really, really pressured? The answer is we can see the potential for wins. What if it doesn't win for Terran? Take a moment to think. What if you don't win as Terran? Well, you're going to have less science vessels. You're going to have less siege tanks. You don't have as many of those tools as you would have in a normal game. So that's the trade-off with the build. It's stronger in Phase 2, but doesn't pick up in Phase 3 quite as well if you're going for that. Or I should say, it doesn't pick up in Phase 3 with a lot of the big support units. Science vessel and tank. Still have a lot of power because you have a lot of Marines and medics, for sure. Second thing I want to highlight, if you are playing a game of Starcraft and you have losses like this, boy is that normal. This is the hump. It's hard to get to Defilers as Zerg. It's just hard, and that's when the big tactical game winds up happening. This is a lot of like understanding strategy and timing and recognizing what the hell's going on. In fact, in very modern Zerg games, like as in the last 18 months, Zergs are just getting lurkers much earlier. They're getting lurkers before they start their third base instead of after they start their third base. That's the sort of common answer. We're seeing Zergs be very careful with their positioning in this phase of the game. They're building fewer drones in order to make all this stuff happen. They're rushing for the lurkers, rushing for Hive, and kind of sacrificing all other power just to guarantee that they can get set up. Because that's okay. All you need to do is hold off a bunch of Marines. His science vessels are going to be late. His tanks are going to be late. So, even though I only have lurkers and no Zerglings and nothing else, that's okay, because he doesn't have the science vessels and tanks to mess with me. Seems good. Seems good. But I just can't stress enough. If this is happening to you in your games, it's fucking normal, man. It's super normal. This is the hump. This is the hump. All I hope that you're doing, if you're playing your games of StarCraft, is that you are aware of what your next step is. Because that's the only way that you can learn. The only way that you'll ever learn is if you say, here's my plan. Here's the first thing I'm doing, the second thing, the third thing, and the fourth thing. That's how I'm gonna win this game. Because if you lose during step 2, you're not just saying, what could I have done? You're saying, what could I have done to get to step 3? It's a very important difference. If you don't have a plan, you don't know what you're trying to improve. If you have a bad plan, you can eventually make it a good plan by stating the goals of the plan. Very important to have plans. A bad plan is better than no plan, man. Next map is called Electric Circuit. None of these specific map names matter. All that matters is that you listen to me, man. Just listen to me. You are just going to be shocked at how normal this map is, right? Oh my god, we got a main base. We have a natural expansion. Hey, look at some different features. No ramp indoor entrance. It's actually just flat. It's open. Ooh, that's a little bit more vulnerable. Because in Phase 1, Terran does not really have shit to hold off a lot of Zerg things. They have just sort of flimsy Marines. Well, I guess you can do a wall off here, and that's pretty good. Where's that third base? Oh, actually, this is really nice. If you're Terran, you can just take a third base for free. With one exception. These are neutral buildings. And if you kill these off, this ramp becomes unblocked. So it's an attack path that is not open early, that is open late. The rest of the game, or the rest of the map, is a little weird. There is an open center, but more than anything, there's this big, weird ring that kind of circles the entire map. So there's just a ton of counterattacking that happens if you are a Terran player. You have to worry about a lot of different lines of attack. The big thing I would be worried about, though, as a Zerg, Think about what I need as a Zerg player for those late stages of the game. I want a third gas geyser, like this. Gosh, this is not as nice to defend with lurkers as a ramp would be. I could build some lurkers at the top of a ramp and just be guaranteed safe, but this is kind of, this is hard. Or, I mean, I guess I could take this one, but look at how open this is. Okay, so you're Shine, you're a creative strategist. How do you pull this off? This is one of the more famous games at the end of Brood War. This is one of the ones that really stuck out to people in the TVing OSL. I certainly, you know, I remember when I was rewatching this series, I forgot that this game was part of this series. But boy, if it wasn't satisfying as hell. Okay, supply depot here. Why do you think this is? Just think for a moment. This is not really the point of today's show, but I still think it's very educational. Why depot here? Why not supply depot, barracks, and then another supply depot in between? I mean, Flash is going to answer this real quickly, but think of the various problems you might encounter. As a young nerd. Hey! It's the same wall off. It's stepped back slightly, which is slightly easier to defend because we can even build a command center here, and we have a nice little thing here. You'll see in a moment. Nice little connection. Hey, what do you know? We see a very interesting opening coming out of our good friend Shine. First of all, Shine's going, dude, you know, screw this. I'm not going to go for the usual third hatch here really fast. No, man, I'm going for super fast gas. Normally, you build this pool, and then you go third hatch and extractor together. So you got a nice little bit of space here, just in case here. Right? Nice little movement around. You can protect everything. Ooh. And rather than build a marine, Flash is going to complete the wall off first. Very important little bit. It's easy to go into autopilot here and just like la la la, throw things out. Flash also, and this is typical Flash. This is Flash greed, man. Just on the edge of survivability. He gets this refinery. He's walled in. He has no units. He's only able to do this because he's scouting right now. So awesome. Now, I just took a moment to appreciate the tiny optimizations that all these players are doing, but, I mean, you don't really need to worry about that much. You need to just ask yourself the question, what are the big phases that are coming up here? What are the phases? Early game, Terran can't really do anything. Zerg has all the leisure in the world to do as he pleases. If you're Flash, wait a minute, I remember a super ultra giga fast lurker play that came out of Shine. I remember that. So I'm going to have an SCV sent in the opposite direction that will then return later to scout, because I want to make sure he's not doing that. Alright, remember this opening? Remember this opening? You should. It was from game 1. Hey, look, there's the Academy coming down. Super fast Academy man. Where is... Well, looks like the layer's done. Oh, look at this. A spire's going down. Oh, I see. If Zerg can get an ultra-fast spire, he does lose out on a few minerals, on a few resources, because he favored getting this faster instead of getting an extra hatchery for additional drones. But that's okay, because he can get a third with extra minerals. Alright. Sort of see that? Okay, cool. Cool, nice, good, great, fantastic. What do we see out of Flash? We see a different move. We see a different transition. Previously, we were talking about how he could use this academy in order to do scans and see what's up, but he walked in and he saw the spire right there. So he goes directly for Goliaths. Building an engineering bay. He's keeping his little wall-offs here. Spire's going to finish. Hey, beautiful. Mutalisks. Excellent. This is really annoying. You don't need to worry about this. If you're ever playing against a player who tries to kill you with a single vulture, he just might. This happens to everyone. One vulture is a nightmare for Zerg in the early game, dude. Vultures are terrifying. I hate playing against vultures. Alright. So what was Phase 2? Well, Phase 1 is Terran vulnerability. Phase 2 was where Zerg is going to try to harass and do Mutalisky things while getting to those Defilers. But look at this. It's mech. It's not even bio anymore. How does this change things? Well, mech is slower, so it's worse at pressuring. But it's more stable, so it's harder to harass. But other than that, there's not really too much of a difference. Zerg still is going to want to kind of mess with them and build up to the next big step. Which could be Defilers. It could also be another legitimate choice to do against mech, and honestly, I think the much more preferable thing is to expand a shitload. But here's what was really weird to me. Queen's Nest. Do you notice that there's no lurkers? Do you notice that there's no Hydralisk Den at all? Where'd this drone come from? This is the big drone, man. This is the drone of the week. Gosh, that thing's been there for a long time. How long has it been there? Thought it got there later. While all this preparation for defense against the Mutalisk was coming, engineering bay, armory, getting the factories out. Look at this. Glitches. Tries to glitch a drone through. Come on. This is very hard to do. There we go. So now he's got his drone through. Flash, if you look at Flash's vision, Flash is holing up for the Mutalisk apocalypse. Look at this. Turrets everywhere. He's almost got that Goliath range. Woo! Woo! Oh, baby. And Flash, he was the only person that ever did this style where you open Goliath for defense and then transition into barracks afterwards. I've never really seen anyone do this since then. But the gist is still conceptually the same. You are trying to defend with Goliaths and withstand pressure and hopefully do some counter pressure. Like this. And the Marines are going to kind of help you have nice continued pressure to add into that. Hive is coming up. If I'm Terran, there's really two things that this Zerg could be doing. One is he's going for some sort of super fast Guardian play. And maybe going to try to catch me off guard. I'm not really that worried about that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or he's going to try to do some sort of weird Defiler cheese. Guardian Hydra is a pretty common... It's common enough, I guess I'd say. But look at this. Remember Mr. Drone that snuck in there? What are these supposed to do? What's Phase 2 typically about? It's about pressuring the Zerg and denying the Zerg a third base. Yeah, no problem, says Shine. No big deal. I'll build creep colonies into sunken colonies at the front. Okay. Mutalisks that are harassing. No big deal. No big deal. I already have Marines with Stim. Remember that super early academy I got? Well, I was able to upgrade Stim with it. There's a Nidus. Look at Flash. Flash is going up here. He's like, where's this base? You see on the minimap? You see this scan here? Flash scanned this. He's like, where the hell's the base? In the same way that last game was about a really strong pressuring phase out of Flash, using 5 barracks, this is kind of the same thing. It's a really strong pressuring phase. It's like Mutalisks aren't going to do nothing, and now I have a ton of Marines to kind of back it up. Well, we still see Defilers, we see Hydras. We see a base up here. What's the base for? Look at all this shit. This is so funny. If you understand typical Zerg vs. Terran, you know exactly what Flash is trying to do. He's trying to just deny Zerg this third base, because Zergs really need third bases. They really need third gases. So he's like moving all his stuff over here. Surely there's got to be a base here. There's another SCV scouting. Uh-oh. What's happening? What's happening? Is this guy really going 2-base Defiler? No, that would be so bad, because there's no way for you to apply pressure or attack. Surely there's no way. Surely there's no way to apply pressure or attack. Mutalisk's harassing. This has been a completely unsuccessful Mutalisk harassment. Lots of SCVs in both locations. Look at this is one of the funniest things ever. This is just like a malfunctioning robot. Like, error, error, where is the base? Like, just moving around, checking, checking, checking. Uh-oh. Isn't this just strategically awesome? Only really is working because as Shine, you know that what the entire focus of Flash is to check for bases, check for third bases, check for third bases, have the giant patrolling death squad denying third bases. I should clarify, I mean third gases. This doesn't count as a base. This is called a mineral-only base. This is a base. Like, these lurkers here actually don't want to destroy this side disruptor. They don't want to, because they don't want to give any sort of back access. But look at this! Look at this really strong force that's really good at pressuring is really bad at dealing with tech units. Remember in the last game how Flash just won with this huge force? Yeah, that's common, but there's no tanks. There's no science vessel, doesn't even have an add-on. This is some of the dangers of focusing too much on those pressure phases. But this is just so sexy. This is just using this weird side angle backdoor thing. This is why they make weird maps, man. And Flash, who typically has great crisis management, just totally loses track of everything, man. And I also just want to note something from a new player perspective that I love so much. Look at Shine's base. There's so many so many sunken colonies here. There's only 3 locations. Oh, and the Mutalisk and the Scourge, they're just parked here. They're just waiting. There's nothing that's really going to threaten the bases of Shine, because he just doesn't really have any. He set himself up to have an easy time. And, uh-oh, cat problem. Excuse me, cat. There we go. If you are a new player, and you see a pro take a 4th base, it's okay to stay on 3 bases for you. Even if you see a pro take a fast 3rd base, it's okay for you to stay 2 bases as you're climbing your way up. You can make your life easier by just having less stuff to manage. And specifically here with Shine, Shine really only ever has to focus on this. Everything else is protected, and he just rallies here. So like 100% of Shine's focus is just on making sure that this attack goes successfully. Now, Flash does some good things here. Tries to wall off this side, which is just great. Shine's a little too deep right now, though. And there's no starports. There's no science vessels. There's no upgrades. Just pure lurker defiler awesomeness. Can't even pick off the defiler. You have to be a little careful here as Shine, because you don't have 3 gas guys. You just have 2. So if you lose some defilers or lose some lurkers, you're kind of SOL. And this is basically GG, man. Yep, Widow Mines go down, but Lurkers under Dark Swarm are invincible. Something important to note. I have a very gray cat right here. Hello, do you want to learn StarCraft, SB? Yeah, you do. You're such a good cat. This has no educational value, but I love you so much. Such a good cat. What a great cat, man. That was a good break there. Flash says GG. And Shine is able to actually put himself on the board. It's only won one game, but that's a really kind of amazing game to win. Let's go into game 4, which is going to be... I don't remember the name of this map in the slightest. I don't. Maybe someone can tell me. I know what all the maps look like and how all the maps play, but I just don't remember their damn names. There's only a very small handful that I remember properly. So this one just has a super... seemingly basic shape with just some interesting formation. So you have a huge main, nice and big. You got a ramp, and then you have an entrance, a wider entrance to your natural expansion. There's no convenient third base, but there are these ones that are sort of off to the side. One on the right, one on the top, like so. And so if you're Zerg, you're probably going to be taking another main base and burrowing right here. The middle, yes, everyone's noting that it does look like a swastika. Dude, every single map, that if you have one branch that does this, and it's a 4-player map, it just instantly looks that way, okay? Okay, I'm sorry, this is just what happens with rotational symmetry. I know that's offensive. I'm sorry, I didn't make the map, okay? Oops, I don't mean to close that. There we go. So, this is a ramp to a thin strip of high ground, and then a ramp down to low ground again. So if you look, it's still pretty simple. It's a circular middle, but there's actually ability to slip in very tiny amounts of units here. But for the most part, it's a circular middle area with a typical natural expansion, and then these sort of bases that are spokes to the side. Some maps have this feature of this funky little middle base, and this only matters in ultra late game situations, but rarely. Map looks kind of silly, but it plays kind of like a fighting spirit where it's harder to take your third base. It doesn't really feel all that weird to play on. Did I still have this on? Okay, come on. Come on, game, work with me. Great. Let's take a look at what Shine does. It's going to look awfully familiar. It's going to take this early expansion. Let's take a look at what Flash does. Ooh, something a little different. He goes for Command Center first, and then is going to follow it up with a barracks. If he's really greedy, he's going to just do one barracks, but most of the time, he's just going to do 2. Because you need to catch up on Marines that you haven't built. We see the 3rd hatchery coming down for Shine. Very common, very standard, very normal. Nothing to see here. What's the first thing that you wound up seeing? With that first 100 gas, a layer. Nothing out of the ordinary. Drones being built. Nothing out of the ordinary. Next thing going to be built. Speed for Zerglings. Nothing out of the ordinary. What do we see from Flash? Super fast engineering bay. Even before Academy. That is modern Terran vs. Zerg. You get the upgrade, so you have super powerful Marines, because it's all about Phase 2. It's all about mid-game pressure. Less about getting quickly to that tactical period. So something that's significant to note here. If you're Flash, you're probably going to be a little suspicious about every single larva not being built, and that's because Shine is getting burrow. And there's the spire coming down. It all looks pretty normal, and in a moment, Speed is going to finish for Zerg. Actually, wow, man, my timing's amazing. Speed's going to finish for Zerg, which is really the guaranteed you can no longer have any SCVs in here, and Shine just times this perfectly. He just starts flooding Zerglings. Now, in the previous games, what we saw out of Flash was that he moved out right around now with medics, but we're seeing a different opening. He's delaying that. He's going for the 5 barracks. I cannot stress enough that this is the modern gameplay. Shine really needs to be careful and kind of hide these and just make sure he has 8. Where did Flash scan? I just want to see real fast. Yep, sees a spire almost done. This just should look pretty normal if you're Flash. It just looks like a Zerg doing Zerg things. Zerg kind of poking at the front. This is Zerg just doing Zerg things. But look at this, man. Look at this. If you're Flash, you can't actually see up this high ground. So he's just burrowing tons of lings on the high ground. Oh, man. The anticipation. And he's going to get some Mutalisks out. Oh. Oh, damn. No, just be really careful doing that, man. See, this is smart. If you have one Zergling here, you look like a Zerg who's playing normally. You're just trying to look for when stuff's coming out. I'll make one final note about the connection to the Jaedong versus Innovation game. In the Jaedong versus Innovation game, you saw Innovation move out a little bit after 5 minutes because he got 3 barracks quite quickly. He got an academy quite quickly, got these upgrades quite quickly, and then he got this engineering bay later, and barracks 4 and 5 later. This is what makes modern Terran vs. Zerg interesting from a Terran perspective. The Terran is not moving out. It's 6.5 minutes, and Terran still isn't moved out. But oh my goodness, is there a lot of Marines coming out. Oh my gosh, are they going to be strong in just a moment. This is very thin timing out of Shine. A little bit all-in-ish. Drone getting into position. It's not all the way all-in-ish, though, because if you unburrow and kill off a ton of Marines and just get the jump on him, you're in great shape. Because you're already getting your 3rd base up. Is there a lurker den anywhere? Nope, not yet. What better way to get them into the right position than to draw them that way? I think this is literally the big mistake right here. Shine flew into the main base, and if you're Flash, you're not worried about your main base. So he just walks right past. And then Flash smells something's wrong, so he just like scans and finds everything and just kills them off. Okay, this is why we don't do tricky things every game, man. This is why we don't do that. Okay, this is the problem. Okay, this is if there's anything that I can just batter into your head. This game is primarily not about surprises. Starcraft is not a game about surprises. If you're playing a lot, you've seen everything. Nothing surprises you. You're just tracking a lot of information. It's an information tracking game. It's a management game. It's a strategy game. It's not primarily a game about surprise. This can happen, but this happens a lot too. Didn't that suck? Yep. Yes. Yes, it did. And you know what Flash does? He just ends the game immediately. He's just like, okay, la 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 la, la la la, overlords, la 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 la, GG. Alright, great. I can now close the entire program of Starcraft. So, kind of a funny final game to end on because of the tenor of the previous ones. But I still think it highlights a really important pair of things. One is that, like, you gotta be really careful if you're trying to be tricksy and surprising, because things are surprisingly flimsy up until you get to the mid-game where you have defilers. And this is why I'm going to be using the term in this series a lot, the hump, because it's just hard to get over this hump of problems that you have in the early game, because you kind of want to be cute because it feels so good to unburrow and kill all of his Marines. Ah, yeah, let's do that every single Zerg vs. Terran, but then you just wind up in a game like that, and once all the Zerglings are dead, you're dead. You have no opportunity to get to the next phase in the game at all. So I strongly recommend trying to avoid doing too many of those cutesy things, but do them sometimes because they're really rewarding. They're really satisfying. 1 out of every 5 games, just go all in, man. Just go all in. You wind up in these insane games sometimes, or you get easy wins, or you get stupid losses, and you'll familiarize yourself with that experience. But on a strategic level, what I want to highlight is that last game shows why the 5 racks plus 1 opening is so common for Terrans nowadays against Zerg. If Zerg messes up even slightly, you just immediately overwhelm. Immediately you overwhelm them. This is why the 3 barracks style that we saw out of Innovation has slightly fallen out of style, because it's just so easy to overwhelm and crush through. That said, that traditional Zerg vs. Terran game, the Innovation vs. Jaedong first game that we saw during this entire show, that's a really great guideline to follow for either race, both Terran and Zerg, if you're just looking for a nice starting place. It's a very solid game from Zerg. It just shows the basics of using Mutalisks, not diving and killing workers, but just using them to delay, using lurkers to delay, and then just defending for infinity once you get to defilers. From the Terran side of things, it just shows how nice it is to have tanks and vessels all pushing together in harmony. And why 3 racks lets you do a little bit of cute stuff at the start of the game. So that's our Zerg vs. Terran for the game. Oh, I forgot about the Flash vs. Shine series. We'll probably talk about that. Hopefully it helped showcase a little bit about where and why various cheeses happen, and at least when I'm watching a game, all those things are always in contrast to the normal play, and that's what really makes them fascinating and interesting. So, for your homework, just keep playing against computers. Keep playing team games. If you got a build order, just keep doing your build order. Just get more used to the game. And on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about mouse control techniques, hotkey techniques, and keyboard shortcuts that will help you play things more smoothly. So until then, I'll see you on Thursday. And tomorrow, I'm going to play some Dota, guys. Good night. We learned some Starcraft. Oh, yeah.